I normally create games that are solely gameplay focused and have little story. When I discovered Marlin's Haunted Halloween Horror Jam to create a horror game in 10 days for Halloween, I knew what I had to do. I wanted to make a game with more of a story focus, so this devlog will be a little different than the other devlogs on my channel. I will be diving deeper into how I tried to handle the story and horror, rather than the process of making the game itself. This is how I created Lure of the Flames for Marlin's Haunted Halloween Horror Jam. My good friend Frostbite helped create all the art for the game because he is so great at art and we haven't worked together in a while, so I thought it'd be awesome to work with him. His amazing art really added to the atmosphere and made this whole thing a lot better than it would have been if I had done the art myself. There were 3 things I thought I should focus on to create a spooky game. First was the story. Using story to create fear was a main goal of mine. Rather than having jump scares that came out of nowhere, I wanted to make your skin crawl with twists in a story. Second was distortion. There's a concept called the uncanny valley, where something is super close to what they would expect, but off by just a little, and it makes it seem really creepy. My plan is to use this concept and at first create a good atmosphere that the player would get comfortable in, before twisting things to scare the player with what they'd expect. Third was the atmosphere itself. This would include lighting, art, and sound to create a spooky atmosphere that the players could get invested in. Let's take a deep dive into how I planned to implement these 3 things and how I ended up actually implementing them. First, let's go over my plans. I ended up overscoping quite a bit, so I didn't get to do everything I had planned, but I tried my best. The story Frostbite and I had planned went something like this. On a cold, stormy night, we find refuge in a cozy-looking mansion, and are greeted by a kind girl called Vinny. Vinny tells you to follow her to the fireplace so you can warm up. So you follow her and make your way through the mansion to the fireplace. Once at the fireplace, a mysterious voice would coax you into the flames. Then you would respawn at the start of the mansion, with everything being a tad different. This transitions perfectly into the second topic, distortion. When you respawn, everything will be mostly the same, but slightly distorted. I wanted to use distortion to slightly change what they already knew, but add more creepy things. This would really creep the player out because something that they were comfortable with would change for the worse. An example of this would be when Vinny is leading you to the fireplace, she would lead you into traps instead of safe areas. This, along with the background dialogue being changed to add more creepy stuff, would add depth and put a chill down your spine. Getting back to the story, the mysterious voice would be corrupting Vinny, and once you got to the end of the second run, you would walk into the fire once again. On the third run, everything would be corrupted, and have the most distortion. The mysterious voice would reveal themselves to be a ghost, and you would be forced to sacrifice Vinny. This is just one ending though. This would be the bad ending, but if you make the right choices, you could get the good ending. The good ending would be similar, but at the climax you would be able to escape with Vinny. This was the plan. We wanted a game that was creepy, grand, and fun. This plan was very overscoped, and after a couple of days we knew that this plan couldn't be done in the time frame. Using the same principles, we cut most of it and redid our plan. We ended up cutting the mysterious ghost and turned Vinny into the villain. This made a more creepy story overall because Vinny has her own motivations. The story had to be changed to just one run-through, which was disappointing, but I tried to keep the original distortion aspects even in just one run. Although we didn't get the full story or distortion elements we had planned, the thing I think we did best was the atmosphere. The atmosphere is probably the most important part of a horror game. The atmosphere is basically the tone or mood of the game and how it makes you feel. To create a great environment and mood, there are 3 main parts that I have identified. The first is the most important, art. If your game is made of squares, the player won't be able to get as invested in the story and won't be as fearful of the outcome or what happens to the character. This can happen subconsciously in the player, but good art gives a connection to the scene and what's happening in it. It doesn't even have to be realistic, because players can establish a connection to even stylized characters. As you all know, I'm terrible at art, so Frostbite doing the art was amazing and helped a lot in creating a good mood. Second is sound. Sound is a very important element that creates a lot of ambience. If your scene is silent when interacting with things, the player will not be connected to the game. Sound provides a lot of feedback, so it is very important in creating a good undertone. I implemented sound by recording various objects around my house, and I created a background track using my piano. Finally is interaction. Interaction relates to feedback and how the scene can gain lots from creating unique interactions with elements in the scene. I created unique interactions with the dialogue system so you could inspect objects in the room. Usually there is more interaction in the foreground, such as tussling weeds or dust at your feet, but I didn't add too much of that. Overall, I think we created a really good atmosphere for the final game. Even though most of the video was the plan that I had created and never worked out, I think it's really important for developers to share some of their failures as well as their victories. I had so much fun working on this game and taking a step out of my comfort zone. I am part of an indie game dev team called the Ducks Quack, and we recently released a podcast, so it would be awesome if you could go check that out. Make sure to like if you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.